Here, take it. I haven't started yet, and you look like you need it more than I do." Caden Voss said it, already holding the brown paper bag out, without ceremony. He was 33 years old, sitting on a bench outside Aldenmoor Park, with his sketchbook open on his knees, and his lunch, a sandwich, an apple, the last food he had until Friday. And the old man on the far end had been sitting quietly for 20 minutes, with the specific stillness of someone who has been hungry long enough to stop announcing it. The old man looked at the bag, then at Caden. He had white hair and a face organized by decades of paying attention, and his suit was old but well made. "I couldn't take a young man's lunch," he said. "You could," Caden said. "I'll manage. I always do." A long pause. Then the old man took the bag with unhurried dignity and ate with the quiet composure of someone who is not accustomed to accepting things from strangers and is doing it now because refusing would be a kind of dishonesty. His name was Harlow Beckett. He was 71 years old, and he owned the Beckett Gallery on Meridian Street, the most significant private gallery in the city, the kind of institution that had launched careers for 40 years, that was the threshold between making art and being an artist. He had a particular philosophy about which artists to show, which had been consistent across 4 decades, and which could be summarized, though he would not have summarized it this way himself, as the work must have something to say that the artist does not fully understand yet. He had come to the park walking and thinking about what the gallery should do next, a problem that had been occupying him for 3 months, since the end of a long-running relationship with a represented artist whose work had become technically accomplished and spiritually empty. His phone had died. He had left his wallet at the gallery, which he did occasionally when he was thinking about something larger than logistics. He had been sitting on this bench for 20 minutes deciding whether to walk back, and a young man with a sketchbook had given him his lunch without asking questions. He did not tell Caden who he was. He asked instead, "What are you drawing?" Caden turned the sketchbook. It was a study of the park entrance, the iron gate, 2 large trees, light coming through in a way that was true to the afternoon, but also slightly more than the afternoon, as if the drawing had found something the scene had not yet understood about itself. Harlow looked at it for a long time. "You have a particular quality," he said. "The light does something unusual." "I've been trying to paint what light means rather than what it looks like. I don't know if it's working." "It is," Harlow said, with the direct authority of someone who has spent 40 years knowing the difference. "How long have you been painting?" 11 years, seriously 7. "And selling?" "Occasionally, enough for materials, not much else." Harlow handed back the empty bag, as if returning something rather than discarding it. "Thank you," he said, "for the meal." "It was a sandwich. Don't thank me for a sandwich. I thank people for what things actually are, not for what they look like." He stood, straightened his jacket, and walked east. Caden watched him go and turned back to his sketchbook. He did not think about the old man again until 3 weeks later, when a letter arrived from the Beckett Gallery. He read it twice and set it on his kitchen table and looked at it from a slight distance, the way you look at things you are not yet certain are real. It was from Harlow Beckett personally, inviting him to bring his portfolio for consideration for the gallery's Emerging Artists series, the kind of opportunity that people at his level of recognition did not typically receive without years of careful positioning and relationships he had neither the resources nor the temperament to build. He brought his portfolio on a Thursday, on foot, because the gallery was 2 miles from his apartment, and he did not want to spend money he didn't have on a rideshare to a meeting he had not yet allowed himself to fully believe in. 12 pieces, rolled and protected, in the flat case he had owned since art school, and which had traveled with him to every submission and rejection of the last 7 years. Harlow came through the gallery's main floor unhurried, shook Caden's hand and said, "I understand you have work to show?" No indication of recognition. They went to the back room. Caden unrolled his pieces and stepped back and let the work speak, which was all he had.
Harlow looked at each piece for a long time, 20 minutes without speaking, moving from piece to piece with the quality of attention that is not assessment, but something closer to listening. Then, the piece in the middle, the gate and the trees. That's the original version of the sketch I was doing in the park. I know. Harlow paused. Do you know who I am? Yes, I looked you up after I got the letter, not before. So when you gave me your lunch, you had no idea. You were hungry. I had food. That was the whole calculation.
Harlow was quiet. Then, I want to show 6 pieces in February. The Emerging series. 6 weeks, catalog essay, reception. The last 4 artists who showed in that series are now represented by major galleries in 2 other cities. He paused. I make the offer based on the work, not that history. His daughter, Vivian, was 27 and ran the gallery's programming. She had watched the review from a distance, as she always watched her father work. She came in afterward and introduced herself with the directness of someone who has grown up in a world where directness is the highest form of respect. She looked at the painting on the table, the gate, the trees, the light that was doing what light means, and said, "He doesn't show work he doesn't believe in. I'd take that seriously if I were you." "I do," Caden said. She looked at him. Good. The show opened in February. 6 pieces, the catalog essay, the reception. Caden stood in the gallery in his one good jacket, the same jacket he had worn to every interview and submission meeting and opening he had attended in 5 years, and watched people look at his work with the unhurried attention that the gallery's quality of curation always produced. He watched strangers stop in front of his paintings and stand there for longer than people stand in front of most things, and he felt the specific, disorienting vertigo of being seen clearly after a long period of not being seen at all. 3 pieces sold the opening night, a 4th the following week. 2 galleries in other cities reached out to Vivian, expressing interest in representing his work, which was something Caden had not allowed himself to expect. On the last evening of the show, Harlow found Caden standing in front of the gate and trees piece, the only one not sold. "Why not that one?" Harlow asked. "Because it's the one I was drawing when I gave you the sandwich. Some things you don't sell." Harlow looked at him, then at the painting. Then, "You know I was genuinely hungry that afternoon." "I know. That's why I gave you the food." Kindness given without knowing who the recipient is or what they might offer in return, that is the only kind entirely pure. It is also, quite often, the kind that finds its way back, not as repayment, because kindness cannot be repaid, but as proof that the world contains the quality of attention you put into it. Give when you have something to give. It doesn't matter if it's a sandwich. What matters is that it was yours and you gave it freely.
If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.